Today we're going to be talking about the youth dividend, just trying to understand the whole question of unemployment among our youth and approach it from a solution point of understanding and just see how we can better position our youth to be employable. Now, you can be part of this conversation. Talk to us using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. At KBC Channel 1 is our official station handle. My handle is at Jain Wambui across all the social media platforms. We welcome any questions, comments, or clarifications that you may be needing in regards to this conversation. Now, to help us this morning with this topic, we have with us Nahashon Indiya, who is the Youth Empowerment and Economic Strengthening Coordinator at Plan International here in Kenya. Good morning, Nahashon.
Good morning, Jen.
Thank you so much for making time to be with us today.
It's a pleasure.
Are you on the social media platform?
Yes.
How can our viewers get in touch with you?
So you can find me on Twitter by following at Nahashon Indiya and Facebook Angwa Gulali.
All right, yeah. There you have it. So if you feel you want to send any questions to him more directly, feel free to do so. Now, let me just take you through some stats that I found on the socials. It is estimated that Africa has the highest concentration of young people, and this is particularly looking at the age group of 15 and 24. It is estimated to be about 200 million. Still looking at this figure, the youth are more likely to be unemployed as compared to the adults. And narrowing it further down, they actually looked at Uganda, which is known, as per the current information, Uganda has the world's youngest population. Now, when you hear such information that, the youth make up a huge majority of the global population, and yet they are more likely to be unemployed as opposed to the adults who have already, figured out their lives, where do you put the youth in this vicious chain of employment and the hopes for them to actually get a stable source of income?
Thanks, Jen. I think even when you're looking at Uganda, I think you're going far. Mm-hmm. Even let's just contextualize and look at Kenya.
Yes.
And look at the population. Mm-hmm. The young people are estimated to be 62% of the population.
Yes.
That's according to the 2019 National Census. And out of these 62%, actually, let me just say, that is a reflection whereby 6 out of every 10 people yes. who are out there, 6 of them are young people. Mm-hmm. But out of these 62%, 40% are actually unemployed. So that's a very, it's actually a crisis, it's a time bomb. Mm-hmm. And looking at that issue of, in Africa we have close to you say 200
million.
200
approximately.
Million, approximately.
Yeah.
The number might be actually increasing.
Higher than that.
Looking at Kenya, let me say the issue of youth unemployment, we actually look at it from both the demand side and the supply side. Mm-hmm. There are issues that are actually emanating or contributing to youth unemployment from the demand side, and we can actually look at, number one, the issue of the economy not growing.
Yes.
The economy is not growing, but the population is actually growing. You can see close to 75, we actually headed to 70% mm-hmm. of the population being young people. But the economy is actually stuck at, I think, close to 6%, the GDP. It's not growing. So the economy is not actually generating the jobs to accommodate these young people.
Now, let's take a step back and understand even why, because I believe this is a manifestation of a deeper lying problem. Yeah. And just look at the basics that could be informing this. And let's just start with something that I found just doing my research. And I don't know how practical this may be when it comes to youth unemployment, but there was the aspect of the family setup, and considering that there are many people who come from broken families and families that do not have that stable footing as a reason that contributes to the rates of unemployment among some youth. From where you stand, from what you have seen interacting with the youth out there, do you feel this is something that has actually has been tested and proven to be a fact that could contribute to this lack of employment for the youth?
Yes. And you're very right. And I will actually approach it from the work we do as a Plan International, mm-hmm. whereby we advance children's rights and work towards establishing equality for the girls. So looking at the areas we work, especially the vulnerable, let me say the marginalized areas, areas like Kajiado, areas like Tana River, you'll realize that the issue of youth unemployment, especially amongst girls, is very high. This is because of, number one, the issue of society, let me say norms, whereby the girls
cultural
are not...
norms that are there.
Cultural norms and things like that. Then the disadvantage that the girls are actually having in terms of accessing opportunities, because they're actually in a patriarchal kind of society whereby the boys, or let me say the male gender is at an advantage. So it's also a contributing factor. Other than these other issues of the economy, the society, and I will not generalize that. I will not generalize to say that the entire society is contributing to this, but some communities are actually contributing to this. Like the Maasai areas, the marginalized areas of the northeastern, Turkana, and also apart from the community, we are looking at unemployment in the rural areas is very high, and this is simply because of number one, information. The youth in the urban areas tend to have an advantage in terms of accessing this information. Where are the jobs? What are the changing trends in the youth employment space? Unlike the youth in the rural areas who lack these, let me say, advantage of access to information.
Now, I like the fact that you've brought in this whole aspect of information, because it brings the bigger picture of even education in itself, because we are all supposed to go through the same system, but the disparities that lay there are mind-blowing. And that brings me to the fact that looking at our institutions, and especially those of higher learning, each institution has its own version of the curriculum. Could this be one of the reasons as to why we are seeing these rates of unemployment and these differences between those that are based in the rural or the urban setups?
Definitely. And
to what extent do you think it actually contributes the rates of unemployment?
I would say to a larger extent. Number one, because if you look at our education system, and it's good that we're actually transitioning from the 844 to the CBC. And it's good that we are actually starting to see the labor market actors get really involved in the education decisions in the country. Initially, you'll realize that, someone just gets into a school, does his 844, let me say Form 4, gets into the tertiary institutions, and jumps directly into the labor market in search for jobs. And in that setup, you'll realize that the labor market players, especially the likes of the FKE, the Federation of Kenya Juakali Association, these stakeholders were not fully involved in the shaping up of this curriculum. But right now we are trying. We've actually started seeing a lot of involvement of the labor market stakeholders in trying to shape the future of these children. Because I'll just take you back. If you look at currently the way the tertiary education system is structured, you'll realize that, let me say at the technical vocational level, you realize that we have an institution like NITA, which is doing the same things like what the TVETs are actually doing. NITA has its own curriculum, TVETA has its own curriculum. You'll realize that maybe University of Nairobi has its curriculum for respective courses. KU has its own version, its own version. But when you come to the table, you'll realize that these curriculums are not harmonized. Or even if they are actually addressing the gaps in the labor market, there is a shortfall whereby the labor market players are not involved. And this is where the issue of skills mismatch comes in. Because you're graduating, actually over 800,000 to a million
graduates
young people graduate every year. And they are going to the same labor market space. But when they get there, you realize that this one has a particular skill, the other person has another skill. and yet the opportunities which are there are structured in a way that that mismatch is actually coming in because they were not involved in the what? In the planning, in the development of this curriculum. So CBC, to some extent, okay, we are yet to see because it's still early, but we are hopeful that it's going to address this issue of skills mismatch because when the labor market players are really involved in the shaping up of the curriculum, it means that the issue of skills mismatch will not be there because we will be having graduates who meet what the labor market is actually looking for.
So from where you stand, what do you think needs to be done to just ensure that quality in learning institutions is in a bracket that accommodates at least a huge majority of the young people? Because we cannot say that we can just wake up and get to 100%, but getting to a point where when it comes to the skills that are being taught at institutions are relevant to the job market to avoid this whole mismatch situation that we are seeing.
Number one, I usually emphasize that any decision that is made around issues that are meant to address young people, the youth need to be involved. And there has been this notion that basically young people like saying, nothing for us without us. So these are decisions... That's more of a saying than it being practical. It needs to be practiced. Actually, it needs to be practiced because, you see, these are decisions that are affecting the future of the young people. So when you look at the economy, the young people are the ones who know what actually they need. You might come up with programs, policies for youth development, but without involving the young people, that is why you realize that government comes up with policies and programs when they are in implementation, 5 years down the line, they flop because young people are not involved in the decision-making platform. So at Plan International, what we are trying to do is to ensure that we address this issue from a multi-sectoral point of view, whereby youth are on the table, on that policy formulation, policy influencing table. The private sector is there, government is there, the labor market players are there. So coming up with a solution to address youth unemployment, especially in the current age whereby COVID is actually taking away the gains we've made, requires the FKEs to be on the table, to actually tell us the labor market space is actually changing, and this is how we need to go. The education players, the academia, they need to be on the table. You see, we have curriculums that are actually outdated. Or if they have been... And yet they're still being offered. Exactly, they're still being offered. There are some courses which are being offered in the universities, the tertiary institutions that are not relevant in the current age. And that's why you realize that you get a lot of young people who are out there who are unemployed. You talk to them, you realize that some of them have degrees, but they can't find that meaningful job. Or you get them taking jobs which are actually underpaying them. So we are not only looking at the issue of unemployment, we're also looking at another issue of underemployment. Because you're out there, you've graduated, you can't get the right job that maybe matches your skills, but you have to feed yourself. So you end up taking a job that is actually underpaying you. And that is why I can actually say we still have a long way to go in achieving the issue of decent employment, whereby you can earn, let me say, you can get a job that can actually give you income that can sustain you better and make you advance. So it's just an issue of all the labor market stakeholders, the young people, the private sector and government come together and define the destiny of the young people.
All right. Now let's focus on the young people because they are also part of the problem. Most graduates, when you get out of school, you want to get a formal job. And we look at our counterparts who are in the TVET institutions and we sort of look down on them. There's this perception among the youth that TVET courses are not good enough jobs, they're not going to offer them good enough opportunities or jobs for that matter. What do you think is actually pushing them to think this way, because when you actually get to the ground and when you're looking for professionals in the TVET sector, you have to look before you actually find somebody who's actually done a TVET course to offer a service or a product that you may be needing, therefore showing that there is opportunity in this particular side of the divide. But we have youth fighting for this formal blue-collar and white-collar jobs.
Then can I shock you? In 2019, I think it's still the census report. Mm-hmm. It actually indicated that, I think in 2018, sorry, 18 million people were actually employed in 2018. I think that is the latest statistics that I actually have. But out of these 18 million, 15 million people were employed in the informal sector.
Imagine that. So
the formal sector only accommodated 3 million people. So using those statistics, I can actually tell you that there is a paradigm shift in the employment space. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, getting employment in the formal sector is extremely hard.
Yes.
But a young person who comes from the TVET, he will actually barely take 3 to 6 months to access a job in the informal sector. Because, number one, just as I indicated when we were starting this show, the formal labor market is not growing. It's actually shrinking.
Saturated.
And it's saturated, and it is the one which is, I would actually say it is very volatile. When something comes up like COVID, the formal sector is hit badly.
Extremely.
Compared to the informal sector.
Yes.
When you look at like the issue of debt, currently we are, the debt, let me say the debt per capita for Kenya, the debt per capita and the debt ratio to GDP, whatever we are generating as a country vis-a-vis what we are repaying. You know, we are looking at sustaining the formal economy or the formal sector. We don't have enough resources to sustain the formal economy.
Yes.
And that is why you can if you look at the public sector, there are some parastatals, or let me say ministries which have actually frozen employment. So there are no jobs in the public sector. How many doctors are out there? They've graduated, but they don't have a job.
So what can we do to just remind the youth that it's not always green on the other side? Like, take advantage of what you have or where you are, as opposed to just because you went through this university or this college, you want to get formal employment at this particular institution, disregarding the opportunity that could be there in the more mechanical or technical areas.
I would actually say the youth unemployment issue is also an attitude issue. Because number one, we've all grown knowing that, you know, I want to be a doctor. Our parents instilled that issue in us, that I'm taking you to school, I want you to be that doctor. I want
There are certain versions of success.
Those versions of success. I don't remember my dad telling me, I want you to finish school and become a plumber. Because you see, but I don't blame them, because, you know, during that time, the formal labor market was actually blooming. Yeah, it was actually, those opportunities were there.
Yes.
But you see, as I indicated, the population is growing. The opportunities are shrinking because the space, let me say the formal labor market spaces, is actually shrinking. And another challenge that makes us to be at this level, whereby we just want to go for the formal jobs. There is, I would actually say, there is a missing link, especially in the basic education level,
yes,
whereby we lack some bit of mentorship and sustained career advisory support, whereby you know, at that level, we need to start and that's the beauty of CBC, is that, you know, in that classroom, these children are being nurtured in a way that they know, I don't have to be a doctor.
Yes.
I can be a good musician. I can be a good carpenter. I can be a good painter.
Based on their competence.
Based on their competence. Yeah. So this is lacking in the current education system. The issue of mentorship, the issue of career coaching at the basic level, it needs to be done. And we have a resource that is actually, that can actually do this, the alumni. the alumni of these schools. For instance, let me say, if a school has a successful doctor, this doctor can come back and actually present the challenges doctors are actually facing out there, and actually change the mindset of these young people that you don't have to be a doctor to make it in life.
Yes.
You get? And then looking at the numbers that I've just showed you, as in told you, the 15 million in 2019 who are actually employed in the informal sector, that's a very big number. Very. And it shows that that is where the jobs are. Because if you look at the current programs that are being run, for instance, the KYEOP, the World Bank program, the KYOP, it's actually concentrated in generating talent or graduates who are actually going to transform the informal sector. And that is where the jobs are.
Now, as we bring this conversation to a close, maybe we could talk a bit about some of these soft skills that should cut across regardless of whatever course you were doing, because one big problem that became a reality for most people is that young people lack financial literacy, and that is something that COVID-19 has ripped the band-aid and showed people due to the number of loans that people had to take to just survive, and even for some, for just a number of reasons that were not even relevant to start with. When it comes to some of these soft skills that could be acquired, you know, when in some of the TVET institutions, do you think they need to be made mandatory for all youth, which are regardless of the institution, or even being put in part of the higher education, maybe let's say secondary school for that matter, for it to be a requirement that every student must undergo and learn some of these soft skills to just help them stay employed to start with?
Actually, they are very key. And I wouldn't say that we need to start preparing them at the tertiary level, but they need to start being, let me say, integrated into the education system from an early stage. Because you see, we are looking at skills like problem solving. If I employ someone in my company with that technical skill, I need someone who can actually think outside the box.
Yes.
Solve problems. I need someone who is emotionally intelligent. I need someone who is able to work well in teams. I don't want a lone ranger. I want someone who can actually sit in a team and do what? Solve issues in a team setup. I need a good communicator. Basically, I'm looking at someone who is not just using the technical skills to get the job. I'm looking at someone who can actually keep the job and make that job actually add value to me. I need the company to grow. So basically, where we are going, we will not only be looking at the technical skills. We'll not only be looking at, you are an engineer, you'll get an engineering job. Yes. I need to see the other skills. We call them the 21st century workplace skills.
Your people skills.
The people skills. Yes, yeah. So I need to see more beyond what you actually paid tuition for. Okay. Yeah. And these skills, I wouldn't say that they are taught. It comes, they're actually supposed to be acquired through, let me say, when someone is self-driven. You need to understand that, yes, I'm a good doctor, yes, but how will I ensure that my technical skills add value to the workplace? I am going to work with people. How will I work with people? I am going to face challenges in a changing world. How will I solve problems? And things like that. So basically, the young people need to, they're supposed to start getting these skills from an early age, from the basic education. At the tertiary level, we'll focus on the technicals. But these others, the soft skills, yes, they need to be in your DNA. As early as possible. This goes back to the education system and the curriculum itself. Exactly.
Now, we want to bring this conversation to a close at this point, but again, we are looking forward to having you again to continue with this discussion. We cannot exhaust it in this one sitting, but thank you so much for coming through and just being a part of this discussion, helping us understand, when it comes to our youth and their employable capacity, how are we doing as a country, and what do we need to do better to make sure that we stop complaining about the youth being unemployed, the youth not being entrepreneurial enough, but address the problem from the root, and then we'll see the manifestation of our labor once you address the problem at the root. We have been speaking with Nahashon Gulali. He is the Youth Empowerment and Economic Strengthening Coordinator at Plan International here in Kenya. Thank you so much once again.
It was a pleasure. Asante sana.
Karibu sana. Now, that's it for Good Morning Kenya. We want to say thank you so much for staying with us through and through. Be sure to join us again tomorrow morning right here on KBC for another fantastic edition of Good Morning Kenya. I'm Jain Wambui. Have a lovely day. God bless. See you tomorrow.